astrology has to do with things. Everything is always there,
Mm-hmm.
but astrology as a philosophical science is what is part of your cognition. What forces are playing the roles that make the cake that you bake as the world you live in.
Mm-hmm.
So Saturn was the last planet for thousands of years because it's the last one visible with the naked eye.
Right.
So it's all that was accounted for.
Okay.
So like Jupiter was God, and then Saturn, because it was still there in the power, but it wasn't God, must have been anti-God, so it was Satan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Saturn was Satan and Jupiter was God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people didn't think of it as I think of it astrologically in that philosophical way. They just thought that God was God and the devil or Satan was Satan, but the devil was Mars and Satan was Saturn. I mean, these are real magnetic powers in our solar system that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sun is our life.
Right.
Without the sun, there would be no organic life on the planet Earth. It would be like Mercury and Mars and all that stuff.
Right.
So then Neptune, a century later, was actually in the 1840s, Neptune was discovered.
Okay.
And then a century later, but a little earlier, it was the 1930.
Mm-hmm.
See, you're going a little earlier each step, so
Right.
Pluto was discovered in
Uh-huh.
1930. Now these are what are called astrologically the outer planets.
Right.
They have long-term effect when they are in ruling positions.
Okay.
Decades. Like it takes Uranus 84 years to make one revolution around the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the old standard was Saturn, which was 29 years, which was called your first Saturn return. And if you survive it, then you will probably go on to the second one. But like, for instance, in the 60s, people who didn't survive it were like Jimi Hendrix,
Mm-hmm. Janis
Janis Joplin, Edie Sedgwick, and all these people who died when they're like 29 or 30, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like Saturn, the planet of death and structure, comes back to the place where it was when you were born.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow that's either a workable thing or a traumatic thing if you haven't become ready for it. Okay, so now that Saturn is no longer the end of the world, or the known world,
Right.
Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are very ethereal planets, and they have long-term resonances. Like the resonance from Uranus didn't stop from the time of the Enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
And just before the Renaissance is what preceded it. So there was a Renaissance and an Enlightenment.
Right.
This shows you what the Uranus culture, or the Uranus factor does to the culture. And now, when you consider the aspects of, or attributes of Uranus, Uranus is the ruler of electricity,
Mm-hmm.
it's the ruler of humanity, of astrology, and of the air, fixed air it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So just in the 20th century now, it's only been 100 years since we've been using electricity,
Right.
flying in planes, and are becoming so, what would you say, humans are becoming so everywhere and everything, that electronic communication has now made a global world. So Uranus has unified the planet electrically, it's a ruler of electricity. So see, you have to be well versed in the science to be able to be a raconteur on it.
Sure.
So someone who isn't, you know, you hear me saying these things, you know, you take my word for it, but you can take my word for it that it is part of a structural system that can be applied, and therefore it can be your worldview.
Okay.
Developed in China. But many other things, you know, the gem has many facets.
Sure.
But this one is that couple thousand years old, and it's an unbreaking heritage. And Neptune and Uranus are very much in conjunction now, because we're going from Pisces, the age ruled by, originally by Jupiter,
Mm-hmm.
but taken over by Neptune,
Mm-hmm.
into Aquarius, originally ruled by Saturn, but now taken over by Uranus. And these were much smaller power planets in the sense of their focus, whereas Uranus and Neptune are really broad and encompass entire cultural movements, not just the primacies, not just the hierarchies. Because the old European system of a prime art movement, prime artists, and prime philosophy are of the Jupiterian god patronistic type hierarchy thing.
Sure.
But Uranus isn't like that. Uranus, in the Greek legends of creation, which are called cosmogony, is the forms of the creative stages.
Mm-hmm.
First there was chaos. And Gaia and Eros. Then were the first manifestations. Gaia is the goddess of our planet. And the first god was Gaia's, I don't know if you call it incubus or succubus or cohabited being. Mm-hmm. She created the first god, Uranus, mm-hmm. as her husband. Mm-hmm. So Uranus is so ancient and beyond boundaries that it doesn't tolerate restrictions, constrictions, inhibitions, and all that stuff. It says no, it's total or yodel. Total or yodel, baby. So you know what it did? It brought the Renaissance, the Enlightenment. Now we're totally Uranian technically, mm-hmm. in the air. No longer Neptunian on the water, because just in the last century, the global travel was on water.
Right.
Now it's in air.
Right.
I mean, almost exclusively.
Right.
Except for luxury things like cruises and
yeah.
all. And we're totally electrified. It's also, Uranus is also the ruler of technology. Mm-hmm. So it just seems to be unfolding as to ancient astrological concepts. Mm-hmm. So these broader things, this broader, the 20th century just started out, all of a sudden you're in the air with just they keep broadening and broadening until you land on the moon. Isn't that incredible?
Yes.
In that short period.
Yes.
So,
do you think the landing on the moon was the next shift?
I think it's a result of the technology focus.
Right.
Electronic technology and
Let me run something past you.
Pluto is, on the other hand, just been demoted to a dwarf planet.
Yeah, poor Pluto.
Which is, no, it's very much the role of a magician. Mm-hmm. It's very in line with a real sorcerer, mm-hmm. to become a troll or a gnome, you know, from being just a regular planet to becoming a dwarf planet. It's all part of the magic, because Pluto is the depth psychology of your inner psyche and everything. It's all the magic things you can do. And, you know, it had to do with a combination of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, the whole chemical narcosia revolution, the LSD and the peyote, the psilocybin, and all these things. These are all part of, they're very organic and long-term, these things. Because they're so long-term, they're not like novelties that come and go in a decade or whatever. But they're things that change the entire culture of the planet. And it's all good. I mean, it's not easy, it's tough, and it's hard, but it's absolutely fantastically fabulous, you know? And because humanity is ruled by Uranus, too. It's for us. And for us to do. Mm-hmm.